Hello my lovely jubblies, I'm Fantasims and welcome to my channel. I love turning Sims 4 into a world of science fiction and fantasy. You can find all my creations in the Sims 4 gallery, and if you like this video, be sure to give it an encouraging thumbs up, subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about fresh content. In today's video, we'll be taking a tour through my Cyberpunk space hangar, which many of you in the gallery have requested. Okay, now to tour our spacey build, we are going to need a spacey crew, so I have chosen 4 of my exomex space soldiers and 4 of my aliens. You can find them all in my gallery. I have 7 different exomex space soldiers. I have a bunch of different aliens that you can choose from. So real quick, they are wearing the exomex suits from Discovery University, but here we have 4 different colors. I've chosen 4 different personalities of space soldiers. We've got this very gold blingy color. I like this blue and silver. And then I gave my aliens magical powers because I don't like creating aliens where you have to do the human and alien form. This gave me access to some of the different kind of eyes and vampire style facial features. So she's kind of edgy and she's got these really cool glasses that also come with Discovery University, as well as this robo arm top. This alien is a bit more of a scary looking alien. I gave her the mermaid teeth. She's a little scary, but she's fun. And then we have this one that has a bit more of a tribal look to her, very fiery red and blue. And then this one is kind of part artificial intelligence, and this is the face paint from Discovery University, and the outfit is from Get Famous. Alright, so now that we have our motley crew, let's take a tour of the build. When you first place this lot, you're going to want to allow a minute or 2 for it to completely load because this build is beefy. So I am making smaller versions of this build for people with slower computers. Okay, so let's start this tour from the basement first. Basically, I built this entire hangar to kind of showcase this spacecraft that I created. It took me, I think, over 2 days to create this. It was the first time I ever tried making a spacecraft using Twisted Mexie's tool mod to rotate objects. I'll quickly show you, for those of you who are not familiar, how to use the tool mod, and you have to be in live mode in order to rotate things. The way that I created these pieces is shift click on the object, tool, rotate. As you can see here, you'll see the axis lines. Okay, that's the axis I want, and I'm going to just rotate it by 45-degree angle, and as you can see, it moves it over. You can shift click on the ground and hit undo and it'll revert it back to where it was. So that's just showing you real quick how I basically rotated everything on its side. Most objects I rotated at a 90-degree angle to face sideways, and I mainly used Strangerville objects. Like, these are actually wall brackets. So when I created this, I actually had to make sure there were no walls nearby. So I started off in a much bigger room because anytime I tried to reposition, like, these click onto the walls. So I had to keep repositioning them, and every time that they fell back down to the bottom, they would cling onto the wall. So I had to make sure I did it in a big room first. Another great tip is objects like this plant containment cell. If you rotate it on the side, like I did with this one, and you take an object that normally locks onto a surface and you put it in there, it'll automatically rotate it for you, which saves a lot of time, at least for those things that tend to lock onto things like tabletops. When I first created this spacecraft, I did not like the way that it looked, because before I put the wings on it and before I added some of the pieces to the top, it was very bottom heavy, but I just kept sticking with it and adding more and more objects, and basically that's all I do. And try to see how you can use objects in a different way. So for example, some really cool pieces that you can use is actually gym equipment. So here, this is from Spa Day, but you can also use base game. Notice how the back has all this detail, so you can hide all this front and create your own custom kind of machinery using some of the gym equipment. Like for the wings, I used a television set and made it way bigger. And as you can see, the back has all this detail, and all of the televisions have a different kind of back to them. Same thing with refrigerators. These metal coils, this metal design, you can put that inside another object. If I take this purifier from Strangerville and kind of nestle it in there and put something on the top, it all of a sudden becomes part of the machinery. So whenever you're creating a sci-fi build, always think about how you can use objects in a different kind of way. Now I'm just going to delete some of these pieces so you can kind of see what it looks like underneath. I'm actually doing a tutorial on how to create spacecraft, so I won't go into too much detail with this one. So I rotated these wall pieces from Strangerville to create the wings. I have these like loudspeakers that I used as sort of extra jet engine. I did rotate this medieval lore lamp because it has fire. So in live mode, it's got like fire coming out of it. Just the added movement makes it feel a bit more real. I supersized this radio to add some shape to it. This is a debug from Get to Work, and this is an upside down stage light from Get Famous. Okay, now with the wings out the way, you can kind of get a better sense of the shape of the spacecraft. And this is another piece of gym equipment that comes with Strangerville. It's a training bot. I just rotated it on its side and used these debug magnifying glasses. So let's delete them so we can see what's underneath. And some more of those loudspeakers, cloning machines that I rotated sideways. And then I used these stairs from Strangerville and I rotated them on the side to give it a better shape. I used these sideways jukeboxes because they had a bit of a sci-fi feel. I just sized it down. And then this is also a wall vent that is from Strangerville. I just rotated and lowered the ceiling lights to make the engines feel like they're alive and active. I used these light flares from Realm of Magic actually. And then this is an oversized streaming drone from Get Famous. I sized it up, and then this is what it looks like underneath because I needed something to tie into this sideways plant containment cell. I thought these looked really good as the cockpit area. I elevated 2 chairs inside. And then this is actually a surgery table from Get to Work. And then this is where my spacecraft build started. These plane crash pieces from Strangerville. The construction is actually quite simple, but when you layer everything on top of each other, it looks like this really complex piece of machinery. Because I wanted this hangar to feel like a place where spacecrafts can come to refuel, get fixed, I created a hydraulics system just for decoration to give it that realistic sense that it is being elevated up so that the mechanics can work on it. And I just used some of the machinery from Get to Work and some of the pipes from Get to Work and City Living, and then this sort of platform that the spacecraft can rest on while it's being fixed. Because I put so much effort into this spacecraft, I didn't want it to just be this really cool decoration that you can't really do anything with. I wanted to create some activities around it so that your Sims can enjoy what it looks like and being around the spacecraft. So we have this section down here. We have this exomech soldier suit, and the great thing about this is you can have as many of these on a lot as you want, and these are crafted with the robotics station from Discovery University. I like to use mannequins in my builds to make it feel like it's fuller, because you usually can only have 8 Sims on a lot. So for example, I dressed this mannequin up in a hazmat suit and he is working on the spacecraft, but you're limited to only having 10 of these on a lot at the same time. So if you're doing a sci-fi build, it works out really well to have these exomech mannequins because you can put as many of them around. And then through here we have kind of a mechanics storage room with all these cartons. These are from Strangerville, Get to Work, and we've got these blueprints from Discovery University, and just this area where your Sims can interact with. And I decided to put these gaming stations here because you can play things like Brick Block, and it kind of feels like virtual storage, like they're sorting whatever storage that needs to be used in this area. Even though it's a game, I thought it kind of suited this area pretty well so they can interact with that. And then it's a bit of a tight squeeze over here, but I put these metal awnings on either side as a protective shield for any debris if they want to come in here and just relax and do some exercise. Although, to be honest, working on a spaceship this size is probably exercise enough. And if they're tired and weary and they just need a quick nap, I have these little napping stations that I have put together with just some industrial shelves, beds from Strangerville, and some of the debug objects that go with machinery and mechanics and stuff like that. And I downsized these from Strangerville, and what happens is the electronic panels stay the same size even when you make them smaller. So see, if I make it smaller, those panels are still the same. But what I kind of like about that is it gives this idea of like a holographic image, which feels futuristic. Okay, so this next level is actually ground floor. I elevated the foundation of this entire build about this high, and then I obviously drew a wall and deleted this part of the foundation so that it has this split level, multi-level feel to it, where the spacecraft sits nestled right in there. And we've got all of this gear. Either this gear has been taken off of the spacecraft or they're using it, I don't know, to fix the spacecraft. Like I mentioned, we've got this hazmat suit washing it down with some sort of chemical. There's also another hazmat suit on this platform right here, and he's hosing down the top of the ship. I'm using this camera on wheels from Get Famous. Using Twisted Mexi tool mod, I rotated the jet water emitters. It kind of reminds me of, you know, like when airplanes come back after being out in the cold, they hose them down with antifreeze type of chemicals. And I'll just show you in live mode, that's what it looks like. It just creates, I like putting movement in different areas just because it makes it feel more alive rather than just this display or just this decoration that's there for no real reason. Now over here, I took the chemical analyzer from Strangerville, the dirty version, and I rotated it on its side because I thought it looked like this big piece of machinery. And even with these computer parts on their side, it looks like they're supposed to be that. And we've got 2 exomech soldiers contemplating, discussing what they're doing. I put a fake door on the front with this hazard sign just to make it feel like it's an electrical area that if you go in there to try and fix something, you have to be careful because you could get electrocuted. And then over here, I wanted an activity. So here is the research archive machine that goes with Discovery University. So if you have any students, they can do some research down here. And then through this area, this is kind of the secretary area, and it's protected with this shatterproof glass and also this metal mesh to kind of protect the secretary from any flying debris. And I used these video equipment carts from Get Famous as monitor screens so the engineers can monitor what's happening on the shop floor. And to create these really cool metal walls, I love these reinforcement beams. They're really cool, and they work perfectly with the wall braces from Get Famous. I also used these mural walls from City Living. They just create some details. So for example, if I remove those details from the wall, then you just have a really plain wall. So it's fun to try and find objects that you can layer on top of walls just to give it more dimension and more detail. And I placed a lot of these drains. These drains are actually quite small. I just made them a lot bigger. And I used the metal flooring, this villain's flooring from Get Famous, and these illuminated strips from Spa Day because they just slightly glow so it's not overpowering. And then I put a bunch of this equipment. I don't really know what it's used for, but we've got some fans, so maybe it helps suck out the toxic smoke from the engine. This can also be interactive. It has the chemical analyzers the right way that they're supposed to be. I just put this machinery behind it to kind of make it feel like it's a bigger piece of equipment. And then I love this industrial piece of equipment. It is actually from Cats and Dogs. Cats and Dogs has some really cool debug objects. My thought process behind having it here is that here's all of these pieces for engine parts. And so for heavy pieces of equipment that need to be attached to the spacecraft, they're going to need something to lift it up and haul it over to where they need it. Maybe like this extends out to where they need it, and then the mechanics can work on the spaceship. And then we have these invention constructors from Get to Work. And as far as the arch that acts as like the opening to this whole hangar, these are just oversized from Get Famous. This is the actual size of what it's supposed to be. I just made them a lot bigger just to create some better shape for the front so it wasn't just boxy, because ultimately once you delete all of the decorations and the details, this is just one giant box. So it's amazing how if you use some of these objects around this boxy shape, it can turn it into something that looks a lot more interesting. I also wanted the back of the build to have something interesting to look at and to do. I created this cantina that has a bit of a space feel. I was inspired by movies like Star Wars where they have that cyberpunk style to it, and in live mode you can see we've got fire coming from these alien plates of food, and I used these steaming grates from Get Together. They're supposed to only have steam. It's actually in the description, and yet there's been a glitch for at least over a year I think where it gives off bubbles as well as steam, which is a bit annoying because I want that steamy vibe of being on another planet, but unfortunately it also gives off bubbles at the moment, so I'm hoping that they fix that soon. I created these tiny little kitchen areas, and I just used the sound paneling walls from Get Famous and put some signs up, just got some basic cabinets. And just like Star Wars, I wanted to give it that almost 50s diner style to it. I love using debug objects a lot in all of my builds, and so I have these lamps that are from base game. I really love the texture on these and the color. It's like that old brass color, and I just elevated some tires from Strangerville to give it a different look. And then this circular bar was actually created with base game debug protractor ruler. It'll flip over because when you put it on a surface it flips over, so I had to make sure to create this circular bar before I put any countertops, and I used Twisted Mex's tool mod to rotate it so that it doesn't have this white side with all of these blurry numbers, and the underneath side has this really cool powdery gray color, and I just elevated a bunch of them and then used, this is debug, but you can actually find it in the roof section, so the non-debug version is right here. It's a roof vent, and then I dressed up mannequins in the Star Wars outfit and all these different costumes, and I set up all of these exomet suits looking like they're surrounding the bar, ordering drinks, and I put a bunch of debug bottles, and also these are from Get to Work. These are concoctions you can make through gameplay, but you can also find them in the debug and show hidden objects cheat. And then back here we have another kind of bar area. I just rotated a bar on the other side to create like a surface. It's also cool to use the back of bars too because it automatically has some decorations in. So in a build you could take an object like this and hide some of it and build cabinets around it, and you've got a unique kind of shelving system. Then we have an area over here where they can do some street art. So these are the DIY wall and floor murals from City Living. You can do art here, the pipes don't get in the way. The weather in the game has transitioned over to a heat wave, so you'll see the screen kind of look a bit wobbly, but it kind of is fitting because we've got this engine running and I'm pretty sure that would be quite hot. So on this second floor I created these two mini labs where visitors can come and maybe purchase a new space suit or have theirs repaired or something, and I use these two-toned versions of the superhero floor from Get Famous. These are debug signs from Get Famous. We've got this ordering station, which is actually a effects table for Get Famous. I have these effects machines, and in live mode your sim can use it to turn all of the effects machines on at the same time, and so I have set it to sparkles just to give it that feel that, I don't know, something spacey is happening right there. Now this backdrop is from the Machino stuff pack. I think that's how you say it. It's for like photo shoots. Even the back of it has a cool look for sci-fi builds. When you download this build it will automatically have it set to white, so in live mode you can set the backdrop however you like. Now I also set up these stage markings throughout the build so that your sims can have kind of dramatic moments. So we see here they're doing like a fighting scene, but it looks kind of fun, like they're having drama in front of the secretary desk. So that's a fun thing you can incorporate into a build. You can put those little stage markings from Get Famous all over the place and have your Sims do crazy stuff in different locations. And then on every level, I like to try and make sure that there are bathrooms, because the Sims are always desperate for the loo, and they always walk so slowly when they're plaiting their legs to go. And it's also, sci-fi builds are a perfect use of these talking toilets, which is an activity in and of itself. And then after you've been in the cantina, you can go upstairs, and I created these game tables to kind of look like, I don't know what the game is called in Star Wars, but you know in the Millennium Falcon how they have that holographic game that they can play? I wanted it to have that kind of feel. It's actually really simple. These are playable. All I did was take these night lights, these kids' night lights, and put them in this direction and this direction on both sides. I did one side blue, one side the yellowy golden color. It creates this really cool effect that the game is in motion, that it's a holographic game. Now over on this side of the offices, we have some activities as well. We have this seating area. These are from Cats and Dogs. They are the training hoops. I just sized them up because they kind of look like a cool decorative thing in the back of the waiting area. We've got a usable microscope. I just set up this area like they're gazing into the galaxy just to make it feel more magical. And then we've got a computer station here. I also created these little sleeping pods. After the travelers through space have had a long ride and they're tired and they just need some deep sleep, they can be conked out for 24 hours and wake up refreshed, or however long they go into hypersleep. Unfortunately, your Sims cannot use it when it's rotated this angle, and I used these rugs from like the parenting pack, but they matched this design and color scheme really well. And if you're not familiar with how to do partial tiles, when you're doing flooring, it's in this square like that. If you hit Control F, it switches it over to quarter tiles. So that's how I got the diagonal look of this area. Now, these two office areas are accessible through a walkway here and the stairs inside the actual hangar, but over here in the back is the only way that you can access this next third floor. And this one's really fun because I created it to be like a Galactic customs mall area. Like when you're in the airport and they have customs, it's got all of these different stalls trying to sell stuff. The only downside is it is a bit of a tight squeeze. I tried to make each area of this level have a different color to it, so you get that sense of like it's a nightlife type of city. I put these here because the ceilings, as we all know, are just an ugly plain white, and it really loses the illusion when you're doing more of like a fantasy or a sci-fi build like this. So I put these along the ceiling just so that when you're walking through in Shift Tab mode, the ceilings look a bit more interesting. But if this obstructs your view, you can always just delete these. But let's start over in this corner. You can purchase some alien pets, and they're fun because they have different sound effects and they move around. And then this is where you can purchase your special alien pet. And then in this area, you can do some live streaming, you know, because you need to be able to entertain your fans even when you're traveling through space. And even though these little stall areas look super simple and easy to do, it does take a while to figure out how you want to layer things on top of each other and trying to find things that fit the same kind of color scheme. So to make this sign, it was just basically layering this sign on top of this glowing light up mirror. And then over here, this is noCC artwork by Mag6002. She has a ton of them in her gallery, so you can download these and it won't get flagged as custom content. So if you download this build, it will show up just like this, and it's cool. It's from the Alien movie, and I put another gaming console type station. And then over here, I think the baby Yodas are so cute, so I wanted to create like an adopt a baby Yoda stand. Not to like treat them like pets, but you can adopt your own little Yoda. And I just love how the orange frame of these chairs just suit the orangey color of these other objects so well. And then over here, this light art is made by a simmer called Nesnora. She's got some really cool light art, and I think she called this room the Sad Robot, and she actually set up this room just like this here. I just made some changes. I added these servo bots, but I thought because they had that drooped over, hunched over position, I thought it looked really cool with this logo that she created. You can purchase your own personal servo bot over at this station. The only thing to keep in mind is if you do have a slow computer, this many lights altogether can sometimes make it lag a bit, so it's best to use these kind of designs sparingly. And then over here we have this like quick medical station, although I wanted to give it this like grungy, almost slightly unhygienic look. Like it's a bit seedy, like do I really want to get treated here? And then there's some like booster drinks that you can have. I set up these little like drip stations where you can come and, you know, like how you get B12 shots of saline drips or whatever. And again, I shrunk down this cart of video equipment and it gives that same holographic look because it stays the same size. And I just put this from Get to Work on top of it, so it looks like one unit. Alright, now here I oversized the portal, the wormhole portal where you can go visit Sixum, and then I use these debug objects that I believe are supposed to be parking meters, but I use them as like pay stations. So if you want to use the cloning machine, if you want to use the wormhole, you can pay for a session, and then there's another acting stage marking so that your Sims can do something dramatic. Now this area is quite fun. I got the idea of creating like a vapor bar, so instead of drinking juice, you can taste these vapor flavors. Unfortunately, I didn't notice that I made a huge mistake until I'd already uploaded it to Gallery. Each of these little masks are supposed to have this underneath, which connects it to the counter, but I forgot to put them underneath each one of them, so it's a bit of a mistake, but I didn't feel like re-uploading the whole build again. Again, these jukeboxes, I shrunk them down and they worked perfectly with these base game cabinets that have that grungy kind of feel to them, and I shrunk down these awnings as kind of a trim at the bottom, and I like adding those little details like that because it turns an ordinary plain object into something a little more interesting. And then I used these debug welding masks and I rotated the small dome water emitter and changed the color of each one so that you get this sense that it's a vapor bar. I mean, they are kind of spraying out quite far, but that's the smallest water jet emitter that there is. And then over here we have a nightclub. So this is like a little dance club that you can go to. It's a bit of a tight squeeze, but it's like a little private area. I wanted to give the illusion that there's like some sort of balcony, so I used these noCC paintings from Cyberpunk that you can also download off the gallery. Now I shrunk down these lights, but as you can see, it kind of looks cool because it also makes them look a bit more holographic. So the light stays the same size even when you shrink down the light feature. And then when you go over here past the vapor bar, there's also another regular type of juice bar over here. And then I just created this like seating area, like when you go to a mall and they have rest areas so that people who hate shopping can just have a seat. And I just layered a bunch of objects on top of each other in a kind of a geometric design. And then over here we have a photo booth area. So if you want to take a photo with the mannequin, or you can move this mannequin and just have it as an area where you can take pictures with your Sims. Again, you have to set the backdrop individually. There you go. But it's kind of cool because it's moving. And when you put them next to each other, they flow seamlessly. So that's a nice feature. And over here, I created like this mini dance arena, kind of like a fight club, but instead it's a dance club. And she is the reigning champion at the moment. But if you can beat her dance moves, then you win a cash prize. And so these soldiers are like contemplating whether they want to make a fool of themselves and try to compete with her and dance. And then over here, we have a little pampering station because, you know, when you're traveling through space, you feel super gross afterwards. And then I thought it'd be really fun to add this little crime scene as a piece of drama. Like here's an alien fleeing the scene and you see this droid laying on the floor in a pool of rust. I tried to get the helmet to go right next to him, but when you rotate these exomech suits, the helmets oftentimes fall off. You have to reposition them and put them. You can't actually put them on top of the head again. They don't lock into position. But I just thought that added to the scene. And then over here we have like this galactic food stop. So I created these plates of food that make it look a bit more alien. And then on the other side of this is a tiny kitchen that your Sims can use to cook up some grub. Now over here we have a galactic type of arcade area where you can come over and play some console games. There's a jukebox. There's this arcade machine. I use these floor stars from the Perfect Patio pack because it adds that kind of galactic feel to it. And then over here we have this little stall that has all the robotics, mainly from Discover University and also some from Get Famous. I actually have a room full of the exomech suits and also these robotic arms, so you can just download them and use them as decoration in your own builds if you want. So that's basically this area. So even though it's a tight squeeze, when you do it in Shift Tab mode, it kind of feels more realistic when things are a bit closer together like this. Alright, now we're going to tour the hotel motel area, and I'm going to speed up the footage of a Sim walking to the area just so that you can get a sense of the environment around them as they walk. Okay, so over here we have a stairwell that actually leads up to the roof area. I tried to make the tunnels leading to the hotel rooms kind of have that Mass Effect look to them. So I've partnered the Get Famous superhero walls. I just shrunk them down with the Strangerville like air purifiers and grungy spacey looking doors. I wanted to create that sort of spacey looking tunnel leading to the different rooms. So if we go into one of these rooms, you'll see I made these little bunk bed areas, and they're kind of fun in live mode because I've got like this water feature going on. I don't really know what this would be useful for, but it just made it feel a bit more spacey. And obviously you cannot use the top bunk, which is why I rotated one of the exomech suits so it looks like someone's already sleeping there, but you can sleep in this bottom bunk. Now again, using objects for things that they're not supposed to be used for, like this is the shower from Get to Work, but it has that really cool side piece that has the electronic panel, and because it has the silhouette of a person, it kind of makes it feel like you can set how you want the bed to feel or what you want the bed to do. And so by creating this frame made of lots of different objects, it just adds a lot more interesting detail. Like I put this shelving in the back where people can keep their personals. It's got all of these hidden details that you don't really see outright, but at different angles you can kind of catch a glimpse of what's there in the corner. And the reason I like to add those extra details is it's just more interesting than just a square boxy room. There's a couple of these kind of rooms that have a double bed instead, and this one comes with its own jacuzzi. And the thing I love about the jacuzzis is you can actually put objects in, even in the middle of them sometimes, and they're still usable. Your Sims can still be in the jacuzzi with all these objects stuck in and around them. Alright, last up on our tour is the roof area, which I created to be like a landing, like different landing pads that more personal, smaller size spacecrafts can land on to get refueled. And it's perfect that in the game right now it is nighttime because it kind of shows off this glowing, illuminating pathway. I created more spacecrafts, and so that they wouldn't just be a random decor item, I set up these activity stations so you can build 2 different rocket ships if you want to, and your Sims can access it easily. And then here is a hovercraft that I built. These are the backs of the gym equipment, and if we delete these layers, I'll show you a trick I used for this. In order to give him a sitting position, this is actually 2 different suits. As you can see there, I rotated one of them and it just kind of makes the arms look a bit funky. I don't think anyone's really going to be looking that intently. You can see there's one angled this way, and then I rotated a bunch of these vacuums. For the main hovercraft body, I used one of these RC quadcopters from Discover University. I then rotated these fans on the side and then put the light flares from Realm of Magic Pack. It's a really simple design. As you can see, it's not that many pieces, but just by rotating them at different angles with Twisted Mex's tool mod, you can come up with something really cool looking. And then we have this small one that I actually made out of these little toy robots and these lamps that I put sideways, so that when you're in live mode and you turn the lights on, they have some movement, so it seems like it's launching into the atmosphere. Although there seems to be a glitch, because when I uploaded it to the gallery, he did have legs and he doesn't have legs anymore, but that's okay, it's just a minor detail. And then over here, I thought it would be fun to have this cute little spacecraft for Yoda, and I basically made it by using these debug headphones. And I rotated these chairs upside down to create the glass kind of dome area. And I wanted these to kind of look like helicopter legs, and again I used the jukeboxes rotated. And then I used these platforms from Get Famous, the superhero platforms, and these debug towers from Strangerville, just because they were perfect as little landing pads, like little helicopter pads. And that's basically it. That's the entire build. I couldn't go through every single detail, it would take way too long, but feel free to download this from the gallery and take it apart just to get ideas for how maybe you could create something sci-fi, to see how I put certain things together if you want to try and do something similar as well. You guys might prefer speed builds, but I hope that by taking a tour you can at least get the benefit of seeing it up close. And like I always say, I love turning Sims 4 into a world of science fiction and fantasy, so if you have any ideas of things you think would be really cool for me to try and construct, feel free to comment below and let me know. You can find all these creations in my Sims 4 gallery. And again, if you like this video, be sure to give it an encouraging thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified about fresh content. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your wonderful support. Love ya!